think you're useful. I know that the others call you names, and I know that it hurts your feelings, but they don't see your potential. That's what they're missing. I know that they call you fat and useless, and that they say the Exocrine is better than you in every way. Well, I disagree. I think you're really, really useful, and you're very special to me. You're one of my first bio-titans, and I love you. And isn't that what really matters? See, you have to listen to your Norn Queen. I love you, little guy. Okay? Now, if you don't mind, I have a video to do. Okay. No, it's okay. It's okay. Hey, everyone. I'm Egoqueenalexis. Love me? I know you do. Anyway, today we are taking a look at Genestealer Cult HQ choices. I got my best little buddy right here with me. He's a little upset, but he's with me nonetheless. So, let's take a look at this codex, let's take a look at the strategies, and keep in mind this is a basic overview. If you enjoy this series, please be sure to like it and comment down below. Also, if you have any strategies that I didn't think of, please be sure to comment your opinions on them, or your entire tactics on them. Without further ado, let's take a look at the army. So the Genestealer Cult has a ton of different HQ choices. We have things ranging from the Patriarch, Megoses, Primus, the Acolyte Icon Ward, the Abominate, Jackal Alphys, and I believe that to be all of them, though there can be more in future installments and future expansions to this game. Now, I do have the boring old Genestealer Cult Megoses, so bear with me. I'm still waiting to get the new one. And my Abominate still is not painted, and I apologize about that. So, first let's start with, how do you run these guys? Well, immediately, I must say this. You can only ever have one of each character in a detachment. So keep that in mind when building your army lists. You can only have one Megos, one Primus, and one Patriarch. But if you do a separate detachment, you can then take one Megos, one Icon Bearer, and one Patriarch. So you can get multiples of the HQs in your army. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult. Actually, it makes things a lot easier and makes it so that you get more command points. Double battalion is where it's at. Let's move you up here. Boop. Okay? Now, there's another thing to immediately consider when building your army. Which cult that you're going to choose. Now, if you're choosing the Jackal Alphys, I would highly suggest Rusted Claw, as it's one of the best with them. But if you're choosing to go Patriarch and a bunch of the other characters, there may be a different type that you want to run. For instance, if you're running an assault-based army, you may want to run the Four-Armed Emperor cult. If you're running a different type of close combat army, one that revolves around getting in close and getting in fast, you may want to go with the Papa Princes. Excuse me. For all of the rest of the breakdowns of the cult, you can see my Cult Creed video. I more than likely will forget to put a link in the description down below for it, so I apologize. Now, one of the other things you have to consider before purchasing your HQ choices is what stratagems you're going to use on them. What special rules, what stratagems and what warlord traits you're going to be giving them. This impacts the rest of your army. So let's say you're building a battalion detachment. Well, I want to take 3 warlords, and this is possible. There is a stratagem by the name of Brood Coven. This allows a Megos, a Primus, and a Patriarch to gain warlord traits, though the Patriarch must be your overall warlord for the army, and this goes for any time you include a Patriarch. You must make it the leader. So this is the default warlord. But with that, you can get several other warlords as well, or at least the warlord traits. You can also then spend 3 command points on Grandsire's gifts and allow them to each get relics, so they can be incredibly powerful in their own right. For instance, I give him the Sword of the Four-Armed Emperor, which gives him 4 additional attacks for a total of 7 attacks. I give him the ability to get -1 to hit him, which is really decent, though it's better on a Jackal Alphys, but it's really good on him. As for the Magos, I usually don't give the Magos a Warlord trait. I usually give it to one of the Jackal Alphyses or something else in the army, because my Magos for the most part sits in the back. Now for the complete breakdown of all of the stratagems and everything, you can see my other videos, but I pretty much broke down the ones that I like to use. In fact, I'll just do a quick review of them. Boop-de-boo, where are my Warlord? Where are my, cult abilities, my cult stratagems? I know words, I am good at words. Words are fun. So, when you take different cults, you have to go with the cult relics that go with those armies. For instance, I take Four-Armed Emperor. That allows him to get the Sword of the Four-Armed Emperor, which is a melee weapon, strength user, AP -3, 1 damage, but he can make 4 additional attacks with this weapon. So I usually throw one of his 3 attacks into the sword and do the other 2 attacks as his base weapon, which is the Toxin Injector. Though I do wish it was a Rending Claw. It's not as good, but still pretty decent. I think Rending Claws are a little bit better in my opinion. Now when taking your HQs, you have to debate whether or not to take Familiars. These can absorb wounds for you, and that makes them really, really good. There's also a relic familiar called the Crouchling, which can assist a Magos immensely, especially in backfield. Now, as I went over with the other HQ video for the Sisters of Battle, there are 3 different types of HQ choices. Support HQ, Mid-Range HQ, which would be him and the Jackal Alphyses, and Close Combat HQs. The Patriarchs are a prime example of Close Combat HQs. Now, they all serve individual roles. He's a Psyker, so he serves the best role as a support for affecting your opponent's morale, or making it so that they can't overwatch you, or making it so that a unit that just emerged can assault. Going over his psychic powers really quickly, just so I get them right. Mass Hypnosis, warp charge value of 7. If manifested, select an enemy unit within 18 inches visible to the Psyker. Until the start of your next psychic phase, the target cannot fire Overwatch. Fights last in the fight phase, and even if it charged, it must subtract 1 from its hit rolls. So what you do with that is you get him close to your Close Combat HQ choice, or your Close Combat unit in general, and use him to affect the unit that's most devastating at Overwatch, such as a unit with nothing but flamethrowers or stormbolters, as they're going to tear through the Genestealer cult very quickly. Mind Control has a warp charge value of 7. If manifested, select an enemy model within 12 inches of the Psyker. Roll 3d6. If the score is less than the model's leadership characteristic, nothing happens. But if the score is equal to or exceeds it, it immediately shoots another enemy unit of your choice or makes a single close combat attack against it as if it were part of your army. Models cannot attack themselves, but they can attack other members of their own unit. If you manage to hit a super heavy with it, such as a Shadow Sword or a Imperial Knight, this can be absolutely devastating. Mind Control is a very, very effective ability, but if you target characters, it's going to be a little bit harder. If you target close combat units, it's only a single attack, but if you target, say, if you target an Obliterator, it's insane, and you can have it kill other Obliterators, or you can have it kill something that's really tough for the Genestealer cult to rip through. Psionic Blast has a warp charge value of 5. If manifested, select an enemy unit within 18 inches and visible to the Psyker, and roll 2d6. If the result is less than or higher than the highest leadership characteristic in that unit, it suffers 1 mortal wound. Otherwise, it suffers D3. So automatic mortal wound is always useful, but mind control and mass hypnosis are really, really good on these guys. Mental Onslaught has a warp charge value of 6. If manifested, select an enemy model within 18 inches of the and visible to the psyker. Each player then rolls a d6 and adds their leadership characteristic to the result. If your score is higher than the enemy's, suffers 1 mortal wound. If your result is if the selected model is still alive, and you repeat this process, each player rolling a d6, adding their respective leaderships, until either the selected model is destroyed or you fail to inflict 1 mortal wound by having a higher score than your opponent. This is really good for targeting, well, let me just double check that really quickly. Enemy model, so it only hits 1 model, so it's really good at targeting characters and hoping that you roll better than them. Though, in my opinion, mind control is a little bit better because you can just shoot with one of its weapons. Psychic Stimulant has a warp charge value of 6. If manifested, select a friendly Genestealer cult unit within 18 inches of the psyker. Until the start of your next psychic phase, the unit can charge even if it advanced, though not if it fell back, and they always fight first in the fight phase, even if they didn't charge. If your opponent has units that have charged or have a similar ability, then alternate choosing which unit you fight with. Starting with the psyker whose turn is taking place. Whew, that is a tough thing to read. If you slam into a Slaanesh cultist unit or a Slaanesh marine unit, you get to actually fight once first before they completely annihilate you in close combat. Might from Beyond has a warp charge value of 7. If manifested, select a friendly Genestealer cult infantry or biker unit within 18 inches of the psyker. Add 1 to the strength characteristic of all models in that unit until the start of your next psychic phase. This is really good on the Patriarch himself when he affects Genestealers, or really good if he wants to affect Aberrants. Aberrants becoming strength 12 with their hammers is insane. Now, that is all the psychic powers that you're going to have to know for your Genestealer cult Megos. So let's go back and go through his stat line. Movement characteristic of 6. Weapon skill and ballistic skill of 3. Strength and toughness of 3. 4 wounds. Attacks 3, leadership 8, 5 plus save. That leadership of 8 means that mind control is going to be the psychic powers are going to be relatively difficult. So keep that in mind. He's armed with an auto pistol, a Occult Knife, and a Force Stave. The Force Stave becomes Strength 5, AP -1, D3 damage. He can manifest 1 and attempt to deny 1. He knows the Smite and 2 other psychic powers. So keep that in mind, he knows 2. Very important because I immediately forgot that. Now, moving on from him as a support HQ, and one of the best support HQs, personally, I would take 3 in an army list. 3 different detachments, taking 1 in each one. We move on to the Patriarch. The Patriarch, in my opinion, is a little bit lackluster. I'm going to say that now. And a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this. But compared to other units in the Cult Codex, I think the Patriarch is one of the not as stand-outy HQ choices, in my opinion. So let's go over what the Patriarch has. A movement value of 8, weapon skill 2+, ballistic skill of 5+, strength 6, toughness 5, wounds 6, attack 6, leadership 10, 4+ save. Really, really, really effective, but and this is why. Monstrous Rending Claws. User, AP -3, D3 damage. If you roll a 6, it does 3 damage instead. It resolves at AP -6 and 3 damage. Really good, but overall, he's going to get shot dead pretty quickly unless you take the -1 to hit him. Other than that, he has Lightning Reflexes, which is a 5+ invulnerable save. Brood Brother units automatically pass morale tests while stay within 6 inches of him, which is also really good. It's a morale buff, and you are going to need to run into morale quite a bit with this army because you're going to need large blob units. Brood Telepathy. Add 1 to the hit rolls made for attacks from Genestealers that fight while stay within 6 inches of him. So if he doesn't make that charge, and they charge away from him, he's kind of left alone, and it's really risky for him to make a 9-inch charge. Unless you take Cult of the Far-Armed Emperor, which gives him +1, so it's an 8-inch charge, but still, it's very risky. If he misses the charge, you might as well take him off the board, because he is going to die. He has Familiars, and he's Swift and Deadly. This unit can charge even if it advanced in this turn. So if he's moving 8 and advances 6, he's only moving a total of 14 inches, which still isn't that impressive because of the 24-inch mark between you and your opponent. So he still has a far way to go. Keep in mind, you can actually stick him in a transport, which is really, really funny. One Rock Grinder can actually hold 2 Patriarchs. So if you need to put him on the board, a Rock Grinder, well, Goliath Truck is not a bad option for him. Or you can deep strike with him. The characters that I would deep strike with is the Patriarch, the Primus, the Abominate, not these, and not these, and him. He would deep strike. Okay, but with all of his stratagems and his warlord traits, which we'll dive into really quickly, because I want to tell you the warlord trait that I like taking with him is, that's psychic powers. I like taking Shadowstalker with him for the -1 to hit him. And for the relic, there is one that gives you -1, I believe, to swinging at him. No, where are you? Add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made by the bearer's melee weapons. In addition, each time... No, I don't like Scorch a Distant Star on him. Where are you? Add 1 to the saving... No. Oh yeah, here it is. Amulet of the Void Worm on him. Add 1 to the saving throws made for the bearer against ranged weapons. In addition, enemy units cannot fire Overwatch at the bearer. Really, really good on him. So he can now get into combat safer. Those are the warlord traits and stratagems and the psychic powers that I use on him. There's a lot to remember with these guys, so if I do miss some things, please tell me in the comment section down below. So right now we went over his relic, his warlord trait, and his best psychic power, which in my opinion is, since he has a leadership characteristic of, I think he's 10, I like taking mind control. No. Mental Onslaught with him, just so he can kill stuff really, really, really quickly. Okay, moving on. We talked about the Magos. Now it's time for the Primus. The Primus is adequate. He is definitely a support HQ, not a combat HQ, though he seems like it with his 7 attacks if you take Cult of the Four-Armed Emperor. But I'm telling you, he is not. Keep that in mind. He is a support HQ. So, going over his stat line, movement of 6 inches, weapon skill 2+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, toughness 3, wounds 5, attacks 4, leadership 9, strength, saving throw 5+. Keep in mind that 5+ means he dies immediately. Unlike your Magos, who's always in the background and always behind something, always has some people around him, he is going to pop up in a danger zone. So he is not going to live too long. Keep that in mind. He's going to pop up in the middle of an opponent's army, and being 9 inches away from multiple units, he is going to take a risk of dying. Now, when deep striking with him, always keep some models within 6 inches of him. So if you have a Genestealer cult unit, make sure one guy is in range of him. I meant to say an Acolyte unit, make sure one guy is in range of him. So this way the Acolytes all buff from his bonus. So, going over his weapons, he has a needle pistol, which is strength 1, AP -0, D3 damage. This weapon always wounds on a 2 unless targeting a vehicle or Titanic. It's kind of garbage. Not gonna lie. No, you get your saving throw. He has a bone sword, which is strength 4, AP minus 2, 1 damage. It's like a power sword, except worse in every way. Toxic Injector Claw is strength 4, AP minus 1, 1 damage. This weapon always wounds on a 2+, unless its target is a Titanic or vehicle unit. Each time you make a wound roll of a 6+, this weapon hits and resolves with an AP minus 4 instead. So that's really good to keep in mind. He also has blasting charges. Like, that's not something that the rest of them have. He actually has blasting charges. Blasting charges are really good. They're a frag grenade, and yeah, they're a frag grenade. Blasting charges are just the standard grenade for the Genestealer cult. Demolition kits are really fun, though. Now, he has Cold Ambush and Unquestioning Loyalty, meaning on a 4+, he can pass wounds on, which I have to remember doing. His first ability adds 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made by friendly cult units in the fight phase, whilst they are within 6 inches of the friendly Primus. That means that any unit within 6 inches of him adds 1 while in the fight phase. So units that are hitting on 3+, like the Aberrants, or the Pure Strains, or the Acolytes, are now... Wait, did the Acolytes hit on 3+ or 4+? 3+, are now hitting on 2s. Really good to keep in mind with this guy. That's how he is a support HQ. That's why he's a support HQ. But you want to make sure when he pops up with the multiple squads, that the multiple squads still surround him and protect him. Meticulous Planning. First time this model is set up on the battlefield, select 1 enemy unit on the battlefield. Reroll wounds against... reroll wound rolls of 1 for attacks made by friendly cult units that have arrived on cult ambush while stay within 6 inches of this target. So if you arrive with 20 Genestealers, or you arrive with 20 Acolytes, or you arrive with a ton of Aberrants, target 1 unit that you know that they need to destroy, especially with Aberrants who are strength 12. Keep that in mind after you boost them. He can make them reroll 1. So if they're wounding on 2s against certain vehicles or certain targets, he can make them reroll those 1s and automatically, well, pretty much guarantee solo that he has boosted them to destroy them. And this works for each Primus. So if you have 3 Primuses and you bring them in all at once, you can target 3 different units and destroy 3 units all at once. Keep in mind, you have to keep 1 per detachment. Moving on, we have the Acolyte Icon Ward, probably my least used HQ choice, and for a decent reason. So, he is armed with an auto pistol, rending claws, and blasting charges, movement characteristic of 6, weapon skill and ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, toughness 3, wounds 4, attacks 4, leadership 8, 5+ save. He has Cold Ambush and Unquestioning Loyalty. Nexus of Devotion. Roll a d6 each time a cult, infantry, or biker model other than an aberrant loses a wound while stay within 6 inches of a friendly cult Acolyte Icon ward. On a 6+, that wound is not lost. So you can get some survivability with him. It's a little bit. You can reroll morale tests for friendly cult units while they are within 6 inches of this model. This affects aberrants. Decent, again, not great, but if you have giant units, you might want to consider him. Bestial Devotion. Reroll Bestial Vigor rolls for 1 for cult aberrant units. Aberrant models while they are within 6 inches of this model. So he can protect them as well, but overall, I'm not liking this guy as much, though he does have a relic, so let's take a look at what his relic does. Okay. Keep in mind, he can also be a warlord. If you don't take one of him. So he can gain a warlord trait. He can also get a stratagem, a relic I meant to say. So, here's his relic. Acolyte Icon Ward only. Add 1 to the strength characteristics of friendly infantry and biker units while stay within 6 inches of the bearer. That is pretty solid. So you can get a total of strength. Your aberrant units, let's just use him as an example, can get +1 strength from that, +1 strength from another thing, and then double their strength. So there's strength 5, 6, 7, 14. So there's strength 14 when they hit. And if you take a Primus unit, which is right here, you can then have him pop up and reroll ones against his targets. So there are some combos with the Acolyte Icon ward that does make him worth taking, but keep in mind you are going to be spending 3 command points immediately for Grandsire's Gift and trying to get as many relics as possible. I would sacrifice the relic on him, to be honest. I wouldn't take a relic on him. I would take a relic on him, a relic on him, and a relic on Jackal, but that's because I prefer the relic on the Jackal. It's one of my favorite things. So overall, the Acolyte Icon ward is another support HQ similar to that of the Primus, but the Primus's abilities do make him a little bit better in my opinion, but the Acolyte Icon ward can definitely help. Keep in mind you have to keep one model within range of his banner in order to get the entire unit to have the effect. Now we move on to the Abominate. The Abominate has a movement characteristic of 3, a weapon skill of 3+, a ballistic skill of 6+, strength 6, toughness 5, wounds 5, 3 attacks, leadership 8, 5+ save. The Abominate is probably my least favorite HQ choice. And it's his number of attacks being so low. An Abominate is a single model armed with a rending claw and a powered sledgehammer. It is guided by a Mindworm familiar, which uses its familiar claw. See the little tiny buddy down there? Okay. So the powered sledgehammer is strength times 2, so strength 12, AP -1, 1 damage. Oh wait, sorry, I went right down. My bad. Scratch that. It's strength 12, AP -3, D6 damage, and it automatically always does 3 wounds, regardless. So his total number of damage could be 18, which is pretty good. 6, 12, yeah, 18. He has Unquestioning Loyalty, Cult Ambush as per usual. He has Bestial Vigor. When inflicting damage on this model, reduce the damage characteristic of the attack by 1 to a minimum of 1. In addition, roll a d6 each time this model loses a wound. On a 5+, it does not lose the wound. And that does not stack with him, but you can re-roll his Bestial Vigor. Regenerating Flesh at the start of each of your turns. This model regains D3 lost wounds, so he's only going to do that like once, maybe. Chosen of the Cult, each unmodified hit roll of a 6+ for this attack in the fight phase. For Cult Aberrant units within 6 inches of him, score 2 hits instead of 1. So he's really good at boosting Aberrants. So if you are taking Aberrants in your list, I highly suggest taking a Abominate. But if you're not taking Aberrants, then I wouldn't even bother looking at him, to be honest. Mindworm Familiar, so subtract 1 from psychic tests taken from psychers that are within 12 inches of this dude. Tyranid psychers are not affected. Kind of cool that he can affect, he doesn't affect Tyranids. I think that's pretty neat. But if your army includes Aberrants, he is a must-take because of that 2 hits. Unfortunately, he himself does not benefit from his own ability. Because he is not an Aberrant, he's an Abominate. And actually, he has the no? Does he include himself? He has it as a keyword. Each unmodified roll of a 6 for attacks made in a fight phase from Cult Aberrants. He does have Aberrant in his keyword. I think he even counts himself. Well, that would make sense with his number of attacks being so low. So he can get a total of 6 attacks if you roll box cutter. Like, if you roll the best rolls possible, he can deal 36 damage. So there's that. So if you're taking Aberrants, take multiple units, grab him, you have a detachment. You can also grab another Primus in that detachment. You can also grab another Jackal, or another Patriarch, or another Magos, or an Acolyte Icon ward. Keep in mind, every detachment gives you access to the characters again. And now, last but not least, and personal favorite of mine, get out of here, Abominate, is the Jackal Alphys, my favorite model in this codex. I really like the Jackals in this book. These are my 3 custom-made Jackals. They're made out of Space Marine bikes or Scout bikes. I think this one's made out of the Scout bike. but these are made out of Space Marine bikes. Forgive the crude converting abilities. I'm not too adept at it just yet. Movement characteristic 14, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 2+, strength 3, toughness 4, wounds 5, attacks 3, leadership 8, 5+ save. They are not a psyker, keep that in mind. They have an auto pistol, keep that in mind, it's actually very useful if you're stuck in combat. They have a Jackal sniper rifle, which is 36 inches, heavy 1, 4 damage, AP -2, D3 damage, can target characters. On a 6+, it inflicts a mortal wound on top of it, and a D3 wounds has actually been surprisingly good. It has Cult Ambush and Unquestioning Loyalty, Skilled Outrider, and all Jackals have this. Subtract 1 from the hit rolls for attacks made that target this in the shooting phase. So even after they kill all of the infantry next to them and target this, there's still a very good chance that this will live. Especially if it's your Warlord, because you can give it a further -1. Priority target sighted. At the start of your shooting phase, select an enemy unit that is visible to and within 36 inches of this model. Until the end of the phase, add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made by friendly cult units that target the enemy unit whilst they are within 6 inches of this model, or whilst 12 inches if they are cult biker units. An enemy unit can only be selected by the target by this blah. An enemy unit can only be selected as the target of this ability once per phase. So even if you have 3, you can only do it once. Now the cool thing about that is I actually think it affects... Let me just make sure it affects them before I say it and get it wrong again, because I have a habit of doing that, then having to correct myself. It's always a pain in the butt. Brood Brother Heavy Weapon Squads. Genestealer Cult, Brood Brother Squad, Cult Ambush. Let's see, Unquestioning Loyalty. So we're just looking for Genestealer Cult units. Don't think it affects them, because they don't gain any of the cult abilities, I don't think. So it doesn't affect the Brood Brother Heavy Weapon Squad. Like I was kind of hoping it would. Yeah, it doesn't. Damn it. I was really hoping it would. But it actually does affect other Jackals. It also affects one of my other favorite units in this book, the Sanctus, who has another sniper rifle. So if you select a character with one of these and you have 6 snipers, which, well, conveniently I have 6 snipers because I like sniper rifles, they're all hitting on... Oh wait, I think it's just +1 to hit, so it doesn't actually benefit him too much. Sorry. Add 1 to the hit rolls for attack. Yeah, so it doesn't really benefit him, but if you do have biker units or... Actually, okay, here's how it benefits, and I've been trying to save this for the entire time. The best thing it can affect is I can read, I promise, and I can talk, I promise. The best thing it can affect isn't Jackal units, and here's why. Jackal units get the choice of 2 weapons. So you take shotguns and not blasting charges, you take, what are their grenades called? They're super grenades. Demolition charges. Okay? Then on them, you use the stratagem that allows them to move like crazy. Not telepathic summon, not perfect ambush, not the first curse. Detonate concealed explosives. No, not that one. Not return to the shadows. Not scanner decoy. Not lying in wait. Not rig. Nope, but rig to blow is really fun. Where the heck is it? Oh my god, I'm gonna actually... Is that on the next page? Extra explosives. Here it is. Use this stratagem before a Genestealer Cult unit. Use this stratagem before a Genestealer Cult unit from your army is selected to shoot or fire Overwatch. Up to 10 models in that unit that are armed with grenades can throw a grenade this phase. instead of only one model being able to do so, no more than 5 of these models can throw demolition charges. So you can throw 5 demo charges at +1 to hit, which is... So you're hitting on 3+ instead of 4+ with demo charges that are absolutely insane, because demo charges are D6, Strength 8, AP -3, D3 damage. And you can only use this weapon once per battle. So you're throwing all of your demo charges plus all of your grenades into an enemy unit, plus 5 more grenades into an enemy unit. And then you can fire a grenade launcher, and you can shoot with all of your weapons still. Isn't that crazy? Like all of your shotguns. Oh wait, no, you can't shoot with the shotguns or the grenade launcher because you're shooting grenades. My bad, I apologize about that. Now, the other thing you want to do is there's another stratagem for them that actually moves them. And I need to find that one really quickly. Okay, let's see. It is Rusted Claw. Oh yeah, use this stratagem before a Rusted Claw unit from your army shoots in your shooting phase. Until the end of the phase, add 1 to the hit and wound rolls made for attacks with this unit's grenade weapons. After this unit has resolved all of its shooting attacks this phase, it can immediately make a move as though it was your movement phase. So, with one of these, you target a super hard, tough unit to kill. You throw grenades at it on a 2+. You hit it with 5, average 15 grenades at Strength 8, AP -3, D6 damage or D3 damage? I gotta check once again. Sorry, I am so good at this. You guys have no idea how good at this I am. Where the heck are blasting charges? There they are. Blasting, or demolition charges. D3 damage. So Strength 8, AP -3, D3 damage. Grenades. From this, you get +2 to hit if you take Rusted Cog, which I highly suggest with your biker units. Hitting on 2s, then you have grenades on top of it. They're, oh god, I forgot what their grenades are actually called for a second. They're blasting charges, so you have 5 more additional blasting charges to throw at them, all hitting on 2s, dealing their damage, and are extremely effective with this, and then they get to move. So, if you want to spend even more command points, which is totally worth it for this Alpha Strike, I think you're spending a total of about 4, 1, 2, the Perfect Ambush is 3, or no, there's one that's Lying in Wait. Yeah, Lying in Wait, use that on your Jackal squad. You show up 3 inches away from the enemy, so you can throw your grenades. Then you use her ability, target a unit, target a tank, or target something that is a priority target. Then you spend 2 more command points for extra explosives and drive-by demolition. Then they get to smash that unit with grenades and bolt out of there. It is absolutely insane. And on top of that, I think the first time this model is set up on the battlefield, select one enemy unit. That only affects attacks. But yeah, it is absolutely devastating and nasty. The Jackals are my favorite choice in this codex. So, with that, I think we went over every single HQ choice and how they benefit your army. Now, I do want to state one thing before I finish and wrap up this video. Your army is going to be focused into 3 different detachments for the most part. I highly, highly, highly suggest you take 3 battalion detachments. You can still take all of your cool stuff like bikes, Genestealers, or aberrants. You can still take all of these characters and everything in those units. He got stuck on the table. It gives you access to even more of these units, and for each one, you just have to remember to use certain brood covens and brood abilities. So for one that contains all of the bikes, use Rusted Cog, while the other ones will use Four-Armed Emperor, because it doesn't really matter with those two. You just need the bikes to come from one detachment. Same with the Aberrants. I want them to have Cult of the Four-Armed Emperor. So now one of these bikes has Cult of the Four-Armed Emperor because they're in 3 different detachments, but that's fine because their abilities still work. And it even affects all units. It doesn't just say, oh no wait, no, it just, these two just say that. But you're only going to be using this one's abilities for your bikers, this one's abilities for your aberrants in that detachment, this one for Cult of the Four-Armed Emperor in its own detachment. And each character can benefit from multiple, well, each character can be doubled up if you take multiple detachments. And here's something cool. The ability to give a Warlord, a Primus, Patriarch, Primus, and Magos, they don't even have to be in the same detachment. They can be in the same army and still get that. And you can even pay 3 for Grandsire's Gift. And one of these guys can take a relic because they're in the army. So keep all of that in mind. Like if you want the Rusted Cogs artifact, you can get it. If you want the Gift of the Four-Armed Emperor, Shadow of the Mind Worm thingy that he can get, you can get it. You can give these 3 Warlord traits and keep them in 3 different detachments and get the exclusive Warlord traits per cult if you separate them. Keep all of this in mind when developing your lists. And now I have to do my goodbyes and everything. If you guys have your own way of running your Genestealer cult, your own tactics, please comment in the comment section down below. Also, check out the description for this video because in there you can find all of the links to my social media. You can follow me on each one of these, like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, as well as Patreon. Patreon goes a long way to help supporting the channel, and pretty soon you will see my photo shoot. I am a model after all, and that'll be available up there. And if I get enough funding, I intend to build and do a Magos cosplay. I'm really excited about this one because I want to do the female Magos cosplay. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. So if you do support me on Patreon, keep in mind that it can go towards cool stuff like, well, cosplay, as well as getting this army up and running and supporting the channel, keeping me fed, keeping my lights on, and overall just showing me that you care about the channel and its growth in the future. Anyway, guys, I'm Alexis the Eco Queen. I love you guys. Bye.